Okay, now it's going to get really interesting. The first character is William Jennings Bryan. He won the presidential nomination 3 times, so he ran for president 3 times, so everybody knows who he is. He was a senator from Nebraska for 2 terms. He was Wilson's Secretary of State, so everybody knows what he said. Everybody knows him, and he's very articulate, very informed, and he wrote an article for the New York Times. I think it was Sunday edition, front page, in God and Evolution. Charged that American teachers of Darwinism make the Bible a scrap of paper. And then at the very end of it, he called out the president of the American Museum of Natural History and invited him to respond. So he publicly calls out the expert on evolution. And that brings us to our next character. This is Dr. Henry Osborn. And he spent most of his career at the prestigious American Museum of Natural History in New York City. So a very prestigious museum, and he's ticked off. He's got to respond to this crazy creationist about evolution, and so he responds. But let's see what he had to believe, what he thought. He said that the standard of intelligence of the average adult Negro is similar to that of an 11-year-old youth of the species Homo sapiens. So he thought blacks were a different species. He's an expert. Should we trust the experts? And he did respond. It was kind of a milquetoast thing, and it's just, yeah, evolution's true. So now there's a public debate between creation and evolution going on in the New York Times. And that's going out all over the country. And I suppose people are picking sides for creation and evolution. And this one guy said he thought he'd help out. And he sent Dr. Osborn a tooth and said it's an ape-man tooth that they found in Nebraska. They found a tooth. And so now just look at this. Does Dr. Osborn have any conflict of interests here? And if Dr. Osborn was correct in interpreting Cook's fossil tooth as being from a human-like ape, the importance of the discovery for evolution and the positive publicity generated for the American Museum would be enormous. But if he was wrong, the negative fallout for the museum and the public's acceptance of evolution would be crippling, since Osborn was now debating with the well-known Bryan in the New York Times. Yeah, so it could be very embarrassing if he's wrong, so he's very, very motivated to prove it right, because it's a public debate. It kind of reminds me of Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro. They're going to debate when she gets back in the country. So that sparks are going to fly there. And this is a big public debate on a very important topic. And so what did Dr. Osborn do? He got together his dream team. Anybody who knows more about fossil teeth than him, he got on his side. And Drs. Osborn, Matthew, and Gregory were considered the world's best of the best and had unrivaled experience in the scientific study of mammalian fossilized teeth. So they're the experts of the experts. And they published it in these 2 scientific journals, and some scientists from London pushed back. And they said, how can this be scientific? He just gave us drawings of the teeth. That doesn't help. We want x-rays. And so Osborn complies and sends them the x-rays with a note. He reminded his London colleagues of the heated battle raging in the United States over the controversial topic of evolution. Any unfavorable comments from the London scientists regarding his fossil would undermine the theory of evolution and jeopardize his hard-fought public relations battle with William J. Bryan. So this has moved out of science right now. Now it's political. It's like, yeah, you guys don't critique this because you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. We're trying to get people to believe in evolution. And if you critique me, that's going to be hard for evolution. And so from that single tooth, the Illustrated London News made this drawing of the Nebraska man. The Nebraska ape-man from one tooth. You got to be pretty good to know what the ape-man looked like from one tooth. And not only that, the tools he used and the family. And this picture is from those books. I'm telling you, these are beautiful books. And I got the PDFs of this. You can get Kindle on Amazon, but it's not very good. Get the PDFs from Carl Werner. It's just beautiful, beautiful. And even this is from there. You can read some of these articles. Just beautiful, well put together. So now the New York Times piles on Nebraska ape-man of the Western world. And then a few years later, in 1925, they had the Scopes monkey trial. And this is where they were arguing whether they could teach human evolution. I think they were teaching evolution, if I understand right. This was about, can you teach human evolution, that humans came from ape-like ancestors. And so you had William Jennings Bryan arguing that it shouldn't. Then you had Clarence Darrow saying that it should. And what happened? Bryan was confronted with a battery of great scientific experts who stunned him with the facts of Nebraska Man. And the experts scoffed and made a mockery of him. After all, who is he to question the world's greatest scientific authorities? And now this is when radio is involved. So now people all over the world are listening to this creation versus evolution debate. And so on one of the days, let's see, William Jennings Bryan, he took the stand and he would let the guy ask him questions about creation. And he didn't answer them very well. And then the next day, the other guy, Darrell, was supposed to go up onto the stand, and William Jennings Bryan was going to ask him about evolution. And he would have looked like an idiot trying to answer those questions. But the second day, they just said, hey, Judge, we're guilty. We're guilty, yeah. And so they just shut it down there. So the world got to see half of the argument. It was very slippery what they did there. And then years after the Scopes trial, the tooth upon which the Nebraska Man was constructed belonged to an extinct species of pig. Pig. That's what it was in 1922. There's the ape-man. 1927, there's the pig. It's the same tooth. And the scientific community lost a lot of credit back there, a lot of credibility back then. If you can confuse a tooth from an ape-man and it's a pig, what else are you wrong about? And now, was it a mistake or was it fraud? See, just because they interpreted an ape-man tooth as a pig tooth as an ape-man, that's not fraud. That's a mistake, that's incompetence, but it's not fraud. But what is fraud? When Dr. Osborne falsely claimed that Harold Cook found the tooth in 1921, he said they found it last year, and that was a lie. They found it in 1917. And the other fraud was in 1909, they found a pig jaw. And they looked at the teeth and they said, those look like human teeth. And they even wrote about it. And they said, be careful about finding teeth in this site because the pig teeth look like human teeth. And that was written. And then when he compared that tooth to all these other animals, he didn't compare it to the pig tooth. And so that's two frauds. They knowingly withheld information or lied about the information. And then in 1922, that's when he got called out, public debate. And then in 26, around in there, they figured out it was a pig. And then a year later, they announced it right around Christmas, hoping nobody would notice. And so what happens to this guy who made that big of a blunder? It's a pig, not a human. And he lied about it. He committed fraud. Did he retire in shame? Was his career ruined? No, it was a boost. Dr. Osborne was elected president of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the highest honor that U.S. and Canadian science can give a colleague. And he appeared on the cover of Time magazine. So it doesn't matter if you lie and commit fraud, but if you're doing it against God, hey, we'll promote you, we'll pat you on the back, we'll give you publicity.